The last time I wore a new shirt out here for you guys, you said I looked like an ice cream vendor. I haven't forgot that shit. Good morning, people. How are you doing? Today is the 15th day of November, 2023. It is bright and early. What time is it? It's 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. Hump day. Okay, yesterday I didn't do anything to the little project because as soon as I finally got the video done after yelling and screaming for 15 minutes and trying for 4 hours before that to put it up, it started drizzling. And if you know anything about trying to level stuff out, which I know nothing, it's hard to do with wet fucking sandy soil. Even if it's sandy, it's still hard. So, okay. I'm back to it today. And maybe I will have an update picture for you later today or tomorrow. We're going to talk about the glorious March for Israel. Oh, the March for Israel. Tens of thousands of people showed up. They didn't just show up by happenstance. Hasbara and IDF and probably Mossad and certainly the Israeli fucking government paid for a bunch of buses and I guess hotel stays for people, mostly retired Jewish people who have the time to do such things, to take a nice little 2-day vacation in the nation's capital and show their support for Israel at the Support for Israel, the aptly named propaganda fest that took place yesterday. Some people, Daniel and Bibi and others, have sent me information about this, and I thank them both, and I thank them all. And it's just fucking wild. They turn on Van Jones like that. At first, it's like, yay! And then the second, as soon as he says something like 30 seconds later, maybe I don't support, maybe we should kind of cut back on bombing babies in the hospitals. Schwarzer! I mean, it's just like that. Oh my God. Know your place. Oh my God. It's just... No ceasefire, no ceasefire. They're chanting, no ceasefire. Jews, some, not all. The ones who decided to... I'm sure there are these discussions and debates, and they are heated in synagogues across the fucking country. Some, not all, who hopped on these buses, who were in the synagogues, decided to hop on the buses and come down here. Some from as far away as Las Vegas, Los Angeles, were bussed in. And all they could come up with was 10,000 people. And it's about 10,000 people. Meanwhile, the report is there's 500,000 people showed up in London in support of ceasefires and the rights of Palestinians to, I don't know, have a country. The mainstream media, run by people of, predominantly of one certain religion, and certainly supportive of Israel, they said it was 500,000. I think the closer estimate would be 1 million or over. Some massive number of people. And so, of course, and these aren't people who were bussed in by Hamas. These were people who showed up because they have a firm belief in humanity. I'm going to talk about a number of things. I'm going to show you some videos, especially Van Jones getting bodied seconds after he was cheered by the fickle Jewish community who just couldn't. That was a line too. That's a line in the sand. Come out there and give us credit for helping black people win their civil rights, which, by the way, they didn't do, and we'll love you for that. But then suggest maybe Bibi shouldn't bomb children so he can remain in power. Fuck you, Schwarzer. Schwarzer, whatever. I shouldn't be saying that. It is a racial slur. Used predominantly now by Jewish people when referring to blacks, so I won't say that again. However, it's one most people don't know, and I seriously doubt even the fucking YouTube or Google fucking algorithm will pick up on it. Gee, I wonder why that is. Anyway, let's dive right into this. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to also talk about historical revisionism and how that relates to what happened on October the 7th, what's happened since, and why. And we'll do that in terms of making a connection to, there's a piece of propaganda film out there that came out a long time ago with a large fucking number of really decent actors at the time, paid bunches of money, called Gods and Generals. Wow. What a piece of propaganda trash, historical revisionism in terms of the cause of the Civil War and the purpose of the Civil War. And of course, slavery in general, which, by the way, is going to tie back into the first subject we'll talk about today. That's the FBI keeping an eye on me. Let me just make sure after yesterday, yeah, we're doing okay so far. I'm going to try to keep this under 30 minutes, so we'll zip through as quickly as possible. By the way, they said this was 500,000, and that's just part of the massive, massive demonstration that took place, that filled the streets of London. Filled the streets of London. However, we'll get rid of stuff as we go. However, that is what they got bussing in people from all over the fucking country. Don't believe me? There's the answer. Many attendees came by charter buses organized by their Jewish communities, paid for by whom? That's right, Hasbara, IDF, Mossad, and the government of Israel. And they came from places like New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles, Houston, Miami, Boston, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Birmingham, Alabama, and other domestic and international locations. They had a bunch of fucking glommers show up and speak before the massive crowds, millions. This, by the way, is the reflecting pool. Here, it starts here. That, by the way, is the Capitol. That is the thing. And that's about 10,000 people. Maybe a little more, but not that many. Bust in for the March for Israel. Interestingly enough, this fucking psychotic bastard, John Hagee, was there. John Hagee, by the way, who's famously said that Adolf Hitler did Christians a great service by expelling Jews from Germany and sending them to Palestine. Yeah, because of course in his mind he wanted, the rapture, and so of course that's his belief. John Charles Hagee, Christians United for Israel. Not really united for Israel, united for Israel to take down the fucking Dome of the Rock and build up the second incarnation of the King David Temple, I believe is what they call it. So that will herald the rapture. Of course, that will mean the Jews are left on the earth to burn while this guy and a bunch of other fat white people will be taken up to be sitting at the right hand of God and Jesus and all that stuff from pearly gates and streets of gold and 17 fucking virgins or some stupid shit or whatever. 17 virgin gay guys who are meth addicts. Who knows? It's just so fucked up. So let's just go on from there. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with that. The March for Israel. Here they're going to talk about the glorious March for Israel.
Home, they came to Washington by the tens of thousands today in a show of support for Israel to press for the release of hostages held by Hamas and end anti-Semitic attacks. Gabe Gutierrez reports.
Doing white things
in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, a dramatic show of solidarity. The largest pro-Israel demonstration in the U.S. since the war began.
See all the white people, white people doing white things for white people.
Around the National Mall ramped up security. Overnight,
Look
Jewish
at all
groups
the white
members
people,
from around the country.
white people talking to white people on white streets near the White House.
Came here from Cleveland. Her parents survived the Holocaust.
And they were white.
We are standing up for our people and for what we know is right.
Speaker after speaker calling for an end to anti-Semitic attacks around the world and for the safe return of Hamas's captives. And
apparently, to continue bombing the shit, white people. Look at this. Fuck this. He's hiding behind civilians. Muslims are hiding behind civilians. They're not calling for the release. They're calling for bombing. More bombing. Because we want that damn land. This is what she got. She got a t-shirt. I had to serve a year as a conscript in the IDF, beating on Palestinian elderly women and facilitating Zionists to steal their fucking land, and all I got was this fucking t-shirt. And, of course, the right to be called a citizen. White people do white things. White people. I'm sorry, folks. If you're offended by that, too bad. This country is a melting pot, and I am certainly not a Black Lives Matter fucking asset. Salesman, pitchman. Of course it was a goddamn destabilization campaign. They use race all the fucking time. But when you have, let's go back to the pictures. Pull up the pictures of who's marching in fucking London and Vancouver and fucking DC on behalf of Palestinian rights and a ceasefire. You have all kinds of people. You have white people, but you also have black people, brown people, yellow people. You have all kinds of people from all types of fucking socioeconomic backgrounds. Gee! I wonder what the average annual income is for these tens of thousands of people who were bussed in for their free 2-day fucking vacation in the nation's capital. White people wearing Israeli flags. Nice. Let's continue, shall we? Now, we're going to get on to this dude, Van Jones. And somebody rightly said, Daniel rightly reminded me of how I laughed at this dumb motherfucker back when he was weeping because he was so proud Joe Biden won in 2020. He starts doing the fucking, what was that guy's name? Kyle Rittenhouse, is that his fucking name? When he went up on stand and they said, you gotta be emotional. And so someone tried to coach him up on acting. And instead of teaching him how to cry, he taught him how to fucking blubber like a fucking 3-year-old having a conniption. Kyle Rittenhouse acting. I'll show you some Kyle Rittenhouse acting in a second. But here's Van Jones getting up there securing securing the bag, as it were. All these politicians up there securing the bag, as it were. And they start off loving him. They start off loving him. Hang on, that's the wrong one. I pulled up the wrong one. No. That's that one. This one. This is the one I want. Here we go. I don't want to be silent because the Jewish community stood with the civil rights movement. Let's hear this.
FBI says it's been unprecedented. 400% increase just in the past 3 weeks.
He's talking about anti-Semitic attacks. Holy shit. 400% just in the last 3 weeks. First of all, when they start yelling at this guy because he, maybe we shouldn't be bombing babies. Fuck you! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! Would there be some blowback from that? Maybe. But let's talk about that. Unprecedented numbers. 400% increase. 6 times 400% equals 24. Oh, dear Jesus, it's 400%. It's 24. Let's try another one. 1 times 400%. 4. It's 4. There've been 4 attacks. It's 400%. It's a fucking epidemic. The point I'm trying to make is 400% increase could be meaningless, especially when you consider how many times rabbis and other such folks have painted swastikas on their own fucking doors or carefully thrown a Molotov at a big wooden door and then put it out and said, oh my God, they threw a Molotov at us. That's an anti-Semitic attack. Somehow or another, the people who wanted to burn down the building threw it at that fucking door right there at the fucking concrete at the door. And they didn't throw it at the 2 plain plate glass windows, 1/8 of an inch plate glass windows on either side of the door that would have busted through and, of course, set fire to the synagogue, like they do with Molotov cocktails. No, this one was thrown carefully right in the middle of the closed fucking door just to make sure they didn't accidentally hit one of those expensive plate glass windows on either side of that big-ass door. Yeah. So, 400%. Meaningless number unless you have the context. What's the number? What's the numbers? Is it 24? Is it 4?
If you don't know that, it's because your social media algorithm is not telling you that. And you might want to ask yourself why. But once you know, you cannot be silent. I don't want to be silent because the Jewish community stood with the civil rights movement.
Yay! He said something great for fucking Jewish people and blacks. Yay! I don't want to be silent because the Jewish community did something from my community. What? Palestinians have never done anything for me. I still stand with them. If the Jewish community didn't really stand with the civil rights movement, if that was kind of like an over-exaggeration, historical revisionism, kind of like, I don't know, gods in general. If they didn't really stand with the civil rights movement, would he still stand with the Jewish community? Why would you cheer for that? Hey, you paid us off once, so we're going to stand with you. Yay! Wait a minute. Let's think about that for a second. The Libyans never did anything for me, yet I stand with free Libya. Syrians never did anything for me, yet I stand with free Syria. You don't need to be paid something in order to fucking stand with someone. It's this lip service. He's placating them. He knew it would be an applause line. You guys gave black people their freedom. Oh my God, we love this guy. In spite of the fact that it is clearly fucking wrong. Absolutely fucking wrong. Never happened. This is there's a good article, and I think I've lost it. Cornerstone speech. I don't have it. There's a good article in here talking about the history of is it this one? Oh, it is this one. This is from Time magazine. The alliance between America's black and Jewish activists has long been troubled. And in here, they talk about the fact that, yeah, there was a rabbi who marched across the bridge in Selma with Martin Luther King Jr. And there was some connection between them. They sing. They borrow from each other's repertoire of spirituals in terms of their singing and their movements. Like in this case, I mean, the movement was Jewish, so the sense of our songs were, "Oh, Pharaoh, let my people go." And of course, what's-his-face just did some fucking march. Norman Finkelstein just did some march in which he did this. This is an interesting article in here, and I'll post a link to it down there for you. The reality, though, is even back in the 60s, colonial Zionism and the Jewish community in America's support for colonial Zionism, even those who supported the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement, was a point of contention. And they talk about that in here. And as black nationalism merged into black internationalism, somebody who was a major proponent of that was, of course, Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, after the Civil Rights Movement and the victories there, he was approaching leaders of black communities and black civil rights groups and saying, we need to get on this anti-war thing. And the heads of the black civil rights guys, until they killed Martin Luther King Jr., they were saying, wait a minute, this guy just gave us the Civil Rights Act, and we're going to piss in his face? We don't want to fucking do that. Then, of course, Malcolm X was killed, and of course, Martin Luther King Jr. himself was killed, and there was a transition. There was a move. And so the black, of course, I'm not a historian, so I'm not going to say which came first, the black internationalist movement, or the murder of these two individuals. However, I will say it's close, and, some will argue that that's the reason they killed fucking Martin Luther King Jr. That and the fact that he was pushing for a poor people's fucking movement and civil rights and rights campaign. And so they had enough with him. They would call him uppity back in the day. So, essentially, they lynched him. But the point is this, and as the Time magazine article points out, they weren't as, close as people like Van Jones would have his eager audience believe. There was a lot of contention between the two because, and ironically, perhaps, or just obviously, the Palestinian issue was front and center of that fucking problem, that conflict. So they weren't always, it wasn't like, Jewish activists were the saviors of the civil rights movement. Not even close. And of course, there's a long history of racism. Racism and anti-Semitism based on a lot of different problems and a lot of different issues, but again, a lot of it ties back to the Palestinian issue. Here in 2018, this rabbi, this big-time rabbi, he's the chief Sephardi rabbi, is the subject of sharp criticism today following his last weekly sermon in which he compared black people to monkeys, as he explained the blessing of blooming trees during the Hebrew month of Nisan. Footage of this sermon was posted by the Israeli news site Ynet. They fucking posted it. He referred to black people as monkeys, and Ynet posted it. Scott, that was 1950. It was 2018. Would you like to know something that happened even more recently in terms of the relations between Jewish and black people? African migrants are a real threat to Israel, said Netanyahu. That was March of 2023. March of 2023, 6 months ago. April and March of 2023. African migrants are a real threat to Israel. And Israeli Prime Minister said he tasked a ministerial committee with taking strong steps against rioters, including immediate deportation of those who took part. Also, he wanted to deport all of them, not just the ones who took part in clashes between Jewish and African immigrants in Tel Aviv. He wants to get rid of all of them. Netanyahu orders plans to remove African migrants after Eritrean groups clash in Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Sunday said he wants Eritrean migrants involved in the violent clash in Tel Aviv to be deported immediately and has ordered a plan to remove all 30,000 of the country's African migrants. He wants them black people out of Israel. When was that, Scott? That was September the 3rd, 2023. That's not old school fucking racism. He wants them troublesome black people the fuck out of his country. And here is Van Jones. Here is Van Jones singing, doing a song. God damn, stop that. Here, I'm just going to get rid of that shit. Here is Van Jones singing and dancing to make the Israeli supporters and apologists and collaborators in the United States happy. Because the Jews and the fucking black people were arm in arm, facing death and violence, all on behalf of helping, according to Van Jones, the black man. It didn't happen that way, dude. That's not really what happened. Here's the Crown Heights riots. Ooh, this is lovely shit here. This article here will tell you more of the Crown Heights riots We'll tell you more about, and we have links here from people who wrote about this stuff, The Shadow Over Palestine, The Imperial Life of Race in America. Talking about the real divide. The real divide. And I strongly recommend you go take a look at that. And, of course, these articles here and how black people are a real threat to Israel. Wow, man. Dude, really? But let's continue for a second. Let's just listen to how he fucking lays this on heavy. He gets high on the fucking applause. They're loving him. They're loving him.
Good for the civil rights movement. Walking arm in arm, facing death, going to jail. The Jewish community stood with the civil rights movement, and I cannot be silent when Jews fall under attack today.
Yay! Arm in arm with the black community. Well, not in fucking Crown Heights, and not really in historically speaking in terms of the civil rights movement. You know, if you read actual historians talking about that, because they did have issues, and certainly not in Israel, where they want those pesky fucking African migrants who acted up the fuck out of their Jewish country. Because they are the real threat to Israel. You know what happens when those brownish kind of Palestinians and Arabs are dealt with and they're out of the way? Where do you think their fucking ire is going to be turned next? I'm just asking. Maybe they're going to turn their fucking ire and their hatred toward, I don't know, the people they consider monkeys? God damn, dude. Really? Really, Van Jones? How far will you go? Now, that brings us to this one. I told you, they're going to turn on him quick, with the quickness. I guess that's how you deal with quote-unquote monkeys, huh? They're going to turn on him with the quickness. Watch this.
I'm a peace guy.
Yay!
I pray for peace.
And what?
No more
peace.
Rockets from Gaza.
Yay!
No more bombs falling down on the people of Gaza.
What?
God protect the children.
What do you say?
Let's end all the horror.
Oh my God!
All the heartbreak in the Holy
Fuck
Land.
you!
Let's end all of it.
Fuck you! Schwarzer! What the fuck?
But I'll be honest in closing. When I think about what's happening over there, I don't feel
he's losing it.
Powerful to do something about what's happening over there.
No ceasefire. No ceasefire.
About what's happening here.
No ceasefire. No ceasefire. Shut up, the black person. He lost them that quick. I mean, from this, we love him, to this, fuck that. Hebrews, Jewish fucking slang for black people. See how quick that goes? See how quick that went? And all he had to say was, you know, maybe we shouldn't be bombing babies. And the 10,000 plus people who were bussed in, white people dropping white bombs on brown people. That's too much. That's a bridge too far. How dare you say that? How dare you say no ceasefire? I mean, how dare you say maybe a ceasefire is a good idea? Watch what he does now. He's lost it. We're going to go back as he's struggling. He's thinking to himself, I lost the bag. The bag is slipping from my fingers. And here he goes.
But I do feel powerful.
He's going to try to get it back, though. He's going to get it back. You watch as they chant no ceasefire.
Is to maybe do something about what's happening here. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand here against hatred.
Let's take a stand against what? What did he say?
Anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand against Muslims.
Let's take a stand against Muslims.
Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand here against hatred. Let's take a stand here against hatred of all kinds. I don't want...
He's lost it. He tried his level best. Just take a stand against those 24 fucking anti-Semitic cases of anti-Semitism in the United States. Whatever the numbers may be. Let's take a stand here against Muslim. What? He just threw that in. He's reading his shit. Clearly, whoever wrote that for him didn't write, let's take a stand against Muslim. He threw it out there. He included it because he was losing the crowd, and he could feel that bag just being pulled out of his hand, that money, that support, it was going away. He had him. He had him eating out of he said the fucking Jewish people, arm in arm, just as important. The Black Panthers and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and of course, the Jews. And they loved that. Oh, yay, he knows his place. Damn. But then he went too far. Old Van Jones went too far. Van Jones, take a stand against the Muslim. Take a stand against the Muslim. What's that got to do with this? What's religion got to do with any of this? They want land. They want to protect their homes and not be treated and not be forced to live in the world's largest open-air ghetto. What's any of that got to do with religion? Nothing. Bibi Netanyahu's not doing this for religion. He's doing it to expand the empire that is tiny little fucking Israel. He's doing it to grab that land and build the fucking Havana on the Mediterranean. That's what he's doing. None of it has anything to do with religion. And all those 10,000 people plus bust in, paid for by IDF, Mossad, Hasbro probably, and of course, the Israeli Knesset and the government of Israel. None of that has anything to do with religion either. They're easier to get a hold of and communicate with for the March for Israel, the aptly named March for Israel. But so they contacted synagogues, and religious leaders, and organizations across the country. But that's just because it's networking. They're not doing that because of religion. But Van Jones says, tosses in there, let's take a stand against the Muslim. Jesus. And he thought that was going to fucking win him back. It didn't. Because once he mentioned, let's stop bombing babies for land, he'd already lost the bag. Now, as Daniel reminded me, I laughed about this jackass a long time ago, and it was funny because I laughed about him doing this. I just want you to enjoy this right up until when he says something remarkable.
Bam, what are your thoughts? It's
Work it up. There you go.
Well, it's easier to be a parent this morning. It's easier to be a dad. It's easier to tell your kids character matters. It matters. Telling the truth matters. Being a good person matters.
As he pretends to cry.
And it's easier for a whole lot of people.
Oh.
If you're Muslim in this country, you don't have to worry if the president doesn't want you here.
What? What did he just say? Let's take a stand against the Muslim. Can we hear that again? Where is it? Let's take a stand against the Muslim.
Bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslim.
Let's take a stand against Muslims. What did he just say here? It's easier for who? Who's it easier for,
If you're
man?
a Muslim in this country, you don't have to worry if the president doesn't want you here.
God, that's acting. Oh, he's doing the fucking breaking voice thing. He's doing... I can't talk about the... for Muslims. Oh, my. Oh, my. I'm clutching my pearls. Oh, Lordy. Whatever shall I do? The South shall rise again. Come on, man. Good guy. He will say anything to appease anybody in power. Joe Biden won. It's great for the Muslims. The Jews are pissed off that you suggest maybe we shouldn't bomb babies in the hospitals. And, maybe that's a bit too far. Fuck you. Stand against the Muslim. Showed you yesterday, Ethan Klein, and statement he made on the 13th day of October, which was heartfelt. That wasn't acting. He's not that talented. He's not that good. He meant that. He put himself in the position of, as a new father, holding his fucking infant newborn for the first time, and how that felt. And then he had seen a video of someone holding their toddler newborn, the father holding the body of that fucking child. And it clearly affected him to the point where he was saying, this is enough, stop. And he was saying, even calling into question, how can they justify cutting off water and electricity and stuff? Fast forward, so today, the other day when he was having a fight with Hassan, the Piker, whatever that fucking Nepo baby of related to Cenk Uygur is, and his take is different. He's got to stand with glorious Israel because in the earlier part of that thing with him and Hassan, they talked about, immediately mentioned the fact that Ethan had sent money to help the people in Palestine. Because, on October the 13th, he felt very moved by that. The videos he saw coming out of Gaza. He himself said that once that came out that he had done that, and once people had seen his, which I think he took down himself, that video of him being upset and relating to a human in Gaza, he got a lot of shit from his quote-unquote friends in Israel. People are having a hard time standing with Israel. March for Israel, which is why there's only 10,000 at most people at that stupid fucking rally. That propaganda piece, that Hasbro fucking event. And I'm sure some very hardcore Zionist types, you can find them all over the country. They were able to find a total of 10,000. A total of 10,000. Whereas in London, they didn't have to pay their transportation. They didn't have to offer them free hotels for 2 days. A mini vacation in the middle of the week. And 1 million showed up. What side are you on? Are you on the side of the revisionists? Are you? Are you a fan of gods and generals? Remember that stupid fucking film that came out? They had a long version. And of course the fucking, Civil War reenactors, who like to get together. I should be careful talking about that down here in Florida. There's a whole bunch of them. The guys who get together and they, drink and get up the next morning in their little fucking bivvy huts or whatever, the tents that they hang out in, and then they reenact a Civil War battle, and they try to do it to pristine accuracy. Except for the fact that back in the day they were yelling about N-words and this, that, and the other thing while they were fighting. N-word lover. Mm-hmm. This film, Gods and Generals, or Generals and Gods, or Gods and Generals. I saw somebody who did I was looking into it, and I saw some guy who did a review of it. It was pretty good. His review was pretty good. He says, there are 3 characters who are black in the whole fucking thing. 3 characters who are black in the entire, three. And then in the release that was released to the fucking theaters, which is an hour and 90 minutes or some shit, it's long still. There were only 2. One of them he's only in the long extended version. So there was really 2 in the whole movie about, the Civil War. Only 2. And they talked about slavery endlessly as being not the reason. It's all about states' rights. Our state has the right to do something. And you can't tell us because we have states' rights. States' rights meaning if our state says slavery is okay, then we can import our fucking Negroes from Africa to our heart's content, and you can't stop us. States' rights. In that piece of revisionist bullshit propaganda history, the Gods and Generals, there are 2 in the released for theater version. Black people who both love their white fucking masters. And the one who is included in the long version is a guy who was bought as a slave, used as a slave, and then when the Civil War happened and people were coming along, and the Union forces were coming down, he decided he didn't like slavery anymore, and so he gave his slaves their freedom papers, and this dude just loved his black master so much. He loved his black master. All 3 of them in the long version, all 3 of them loved their fucking master so much. They were such good people. Of course, the film doesn't even address the fact that Tom Stonewall Jackson had slaves. He's such a hero in this thing. It's so fucking sickening. The movie is so sickening. He's such a hero in this thing. And but he had slaves, and his own wife in her memoirs said that he was a good master. He was a firm master, but he was a good master to his Negroes. And the guy is such a humanitarian and hero. Is it Jackson? It was Jackson, one of those guys. But I bring this up so you can understand what revisionism and the danger of revisionism is. I bring this up because I want to remind you, having lived in Richmond for quite a while before moving to New York and then back to Richmond and down to here, and doing theater and going to school and working, you learn a little bit about Richmond's place as the capital of the Confederacy. And one thing you'll learn about it is, when they were moving on Richmond, and Richmond was going to fall, and the Confederate government of Richmond realized they needed to move out west to the frontier in order to continue with their pure way of life, the God-given way of life, God-mandated way of life that was supported in the Bible, according to people like Stonewall Jackson, by the way, according to his wife, her memoirs. What they did was, the last train out, they had fucking boxcars and boxcars full of all the important paperwork of the Confederacy. And as the train was about to leave the station, they turned and looked and saw all the slaves they had used to load all the fucking paper, because Whitey's not do all that fucking manual labor. So they look out and they say, wait a minute, what about the slaves out there? Well, the train's full. So they literally, swear to God, it's not about slavery. The Confederacy literally opened both sides of the fucking boxcars. Right? And on this side, away from the fucking, station, they were throwing all the important paperwork onto the fucking tracks, into the fucking dirt. Because the slaves that had loaded all that shit in the first place were more valuable to them to rebuild the Confederacy. And you know that because when the fucking Union armies came in, they found at the train station all this valuable paperwork and all this stuff just up and down the fucking tracks right there at the fucking station. Like it was all hastily thrown out onto the fucking ground. It was. Because to them, the slaves were more important. And of course, the slaves are sitting there in the fucking rail cars thinking they were that close to freedom. And how stupid it was to have them move all that shit into the goddamn rail cars and then, of course, throw it all into the goddamn dirt. But the Civil War wasn't about fucking slavery, Scott. And you have people who, still believe that to this day. God knows down here in Florida you do. And I was taught a bit of that myself from Virginia. But let's talk about that. This is a cornerstone speech, the cornerstone speech, from an individual who was, of course, the vice president of the Confederacy, Mr. Alexander Stephens. And he gave this speech in Savannah, Georgia, March 21st, 1861, barely over 150 years ago. And he's talking and he's convincing people that they are right by God to change the interpretation of the Constitution in their new Constitution, Slavery is not only allowable, it is God's will. This was the vice president of the Confederacy in 1861. He said, this idea, though not incorporated in the Constitution, was the prevailing idea at the time. The Constitution, it is true, secured every essential guarantee to the institution, while it should last, and hence no argument can be justly argued against the constitutional guarantees thus secured, because of the common sentiment of the day. These ideas, however, were fundamentally wrong. They rested on the assumption of the equality of the races. This was an error. It was a sandy foundation, and the government built upon it fell when the storm came and the wind blew. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. End quote. Why do I share that with you? Because if you look at propaganda as it is being fucking spewed, either, by saying, the white man's evil and does all things, everything he does is evil, and there is no such thing as fucking difference between sexes, and there's 500 fucking genders. Whatever the propaganda you're looking at, you have to remember that probably part of the foundation of what you yourself believe is, to some degree, propaganda pushed by someone. In this case, the concept that the Civil War was not about fucking the continuation of slavery. It was about a number of things. It was about being taxed and being forced to pay this and that, and of course, states' rights. No. It was about the continuation of a practice that was, in fact, contrary to the Constitution itself. And of course, in the end, that's what you had. You still have to this day people who are trying to promote the propaganda that this wasn't about that. And you get the same thing here with fucking Israel. What's going on with the Israeli conflict in Gaza. The propaganda of the 40 beheaded babies, the propaganda of the fucking systemic raping of women and dead bodies while they were, I guess, fighting at the same time with the fucking IDF. Propaganda that it was all brought to you by Bibi Netanyahu himself. Because 2 weeks prior, he was waving around a fucking map talking about the new Middle East, and the map had all of Palestine filled in as Israel. So therefore, he must have planned this whole thing out himself. Think about the logic of that. At that very particular time, the reason he was talking to the UN and giving a speech to nobody in the fucking building, the reason he was doing that was because he was trying to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia, who was considering it. But the problem was, the holding point was, the holdup was apartheid state of Israel and West Bank. And what they were doing, keeping 2 million Palestinians in the largest open-air ghetto in the world. That was a sticking point for Saudi Arabia. So what was Bibi saying with his map? He was saying, he was advocating there's going to be a one-state solution. And in that one state, if we can get Saudi Arabia and these other countries that we want to normalize relations with, if we can get them to put pressure on the Palestinians and recognize there is only one state, Israel, then we can normalize relations with Palestinians living in Israel as second-class fucking citizens. What he wasn't doing was, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to take everything, and you don't know our plans in 2 weeks. We're going to piss off the entire fucking Muslim world, not just the ones we're trying to normalize with, who, by the way, just had a big fucking meeting in Saudi Arabia, the main country they're trying to normalize relationships with, about how to deal with fucking Israel and what they're doing to the Palestinians. So he's not holding up a map saying, you don't know this yet, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to normalize situation with fucking the Muslim world by blowing up the people and pissing them off, and blowing up people in fucking Gaza and pissing off the entire Muslim fucking world, to the point where we'll be a fucking pariah state in their eyes, and will be forever in their eyes. No, I don't think that's what he was saying. I don't think that's what he was meaning. I don't think that was the plan. Is now, because if he stops, he's going to be fucking removed from office and a vote of no confidence, and so are a bunch of his Zionist buddies, and that whole fucking agenda is out the window. The other thing you should take into consideration is the fact that whenever these Zionists wave around any fucking map showing Israel in the Middle East, there is never any Palestine. Never any Palestine. They always do this. And some of them, actually, there's never a Jordan, and there's no Jordan, and in some of them, there's no Lebanon. They just wave around fucking maps saying, and Israel is always fighting against so-and-so. He's got his fucking red mark. He's going to draw a line and show all this bullshit. He's going to say, we're going to unite these. But in their minds, there's no such thing as Palestine. And they also believe, these Zionists, that if they hold up a map and it's got Israel here and Palestine here, what they're doing is showing there are two states. They can't do that. Because someone will come along when they're talking about there's only one fucking solution, it's the one-state solution, and everybody becomes an Israeli and some are two second-tier citizens. then somebody will say, hey, but you just held up a map that showed there are actually two nations. What about that? They can't do that. Do you understand? So what happened 2 weeks prior to October the 7th at the United Nations has nothing to do with proving Bibi Netanyahu planned this with fucking Hamas. Obviously. They did not. It's just the way they fucking see the world. And they know if they hold up a map that shows Israel on it, someone's eventually going to say, well, you saw Israel, you saw a map showing fucking Palestine on it. Someone's going to say, well, you recognized Palestine 2 weeks ago. Anyway, there you go. That's Van Jones. I thought that was funny. Van Jones stands with the Muslims when it comes to support for fucking Joe Biden. Now Van Jones stands against the Muslim, in support of Bibi Netanyahu. What tangled webs we weave. Anyway, I thank you for your time. I will talk to you later. Have a good one. And I'm going to go out there and finish that damn thing. Bye-bye.